Sanjay Mattu Swagata, ladies and gentlemen. I hope I got that right. I am Abrar Kukshiwala, Commercial Director for Hotelier India, and I welcome you all on behalf of Hotelier India and the ITP Media India Group. I am delighted to host you at the second leg of the Hotelier India Regional GM Summit in the IT Hub of India, Bengaluru. As you would know, we had the best of beginnings at the GM Summit West in Mumbai in March 2022, and post today's event, the bandwagon marches on to Kolkata in August. For those of you who might be unaware of its history, since its launch in 2008, Hotelier India has been a champion for the country's hospitality sector. In line with our efforts to support this industry, we constantly endeavor to introduce unique properties that highlight dynamic leaders and their organizations, as well as share their insights which can benefit their peers. The GM Summit is one such example. Let me now call on stage one among the more vociferous and enthusiastic advocates of the hospitality sector, Mr. Vibhor Srivastav, Managing Director, ITP Media India, to deliver the welcome address.
It's absolutely joyous to stand in front of you. My heart is full of joy, and what a beautiful city. A city known for its IT hub, but I unfathomed and unfolded many surprises in the city. The city for food destination, the city with absolutely rich heritage and culture, and what a gorgeous venue we are tonight, ladies and gentlemen. A hall full to its capacity. It's such a privilege. Please give yourself a huge round of applause for yourself. A big thank you to everyone for the love and the confidence that you reposed in us. And if I jog my memory, whatever ITP Media today, a lot of credit goes to you. We first launched Hotelier India, and then it gave birth to many other subsequent titles. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, it's about you, about your work, about your resilience. COVID saw the burst, but I have learned a lot, immense learning and enriching experience and confidence that I gained over a decade to strive today as an ITP Media House, as one of the most formidable company and a media platform. We believe, whatever you do, stay neutral, stay credible, bring knowledge at the highest level, and allow and integrate, collaborate, and ideate. One such big thing is partnership. Irrespective of whatever it is, you have to have great partners. Ladies and gentlemen, the most aspirational brand, the one that I have been, and I look forward every time to get in, which I own one, is the BMW. So Gaurav, Vyas, Rohit, big thank you to you. The luxury mobility partner, it's a damn good car. Please go, have a look outside. There are two gorgeous cars waiting for you after the session. The next in line is Nestle. We know them for Maggi, but you guys would really surprise tonight. They're going to talk to us, share with us that they're not only about Nescafe and Maggi, they're also about freshly brewed coffee and Maggi seasoning. Tonight, the Nestle team and the Marriott team have worked tirelessly for more than 2 weeks to put together some array of wonderful food, desserts, and many more. Then we have Hathaway, the brand which really everybody's designers, engineers delight. And if you use them, they are really very good. So thank you, Saurabh Das, Prashant Dada. Thank you for being with us all the time. And our wellness partners, we've got Techno Gym here. So thank you, Mr. Madhusudan, wherever you are in the hall. I can't see you, but you make us fit. Thank you. I see the gentleman waving his hand. And Jaguar, the world of beautiful Jaguar. You do amazing work. They truly talk about sustainability. I think, water is scarce. And I was visiting one of their factories in Manesar. And I remember my mom used to tell me that, today the Shah's gallons and gallons of water gets wasted. But they've got something called tumble baths. So well done, Jaguar. Keep that innovation on. This is imperative. This is the need of the hour. And how can I forget? One man who really gave me the confidence to hold this evening together alongside my team, Gaurav Sinha. Please give him a huge round of applause. Can you stand, Gaurav, for a second? We will not want to put a spotlight on you, but this young friend of mine, I've known him for more than a decade. Thank you, God. Thank you for making everything dream possible. Thank you bringing the whole industry of the South into Bangalore, and I'm sure that a lot of people, Lokesh from Mumbai is waiting, he has to catch a flight tonight. So ladies and gentlemen, I can go on and on and on. As I said, it's a very emotional moment. This is a beautiful city, and lovely men and women tonight. I think we will have some great conversation. And please feel free to ask the lovely panel. Once again, from all of our sides and all our partners in ITP Media Group, more importantly, Hotelier India, keep showering us your love, stay with us, and I'm sure we'll shine together. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Vibhor. That was really enlightening. Let's dive right in with the first discussion, shifting tides of recovery. Let me begin by inviting on stage the moderator for this session, Mr. Vikramjit Singh, President, Lemon Tree Hotels. And to join him on stage, Mr. Javed Ali, Senior Regional Director, Operations South Asia, Radisson Hotel Group. Mr. Lokesh Sabharwal, Regional Vice President, Operations, India and Southwest Asia Higher. Mr. Ranjan Malakar, Regional Director of Operations, Hilton India. Mr. Sharad Puri, Cluster General Manager, Sheraton Grand Bengaluru Whitefield and Alok Bengaluru Cessna Park, Marriott International. And last but not least, Mr. Vinay Gupta, Director of Operations, IBIS and IBIS Styles India.
So, good evening everyone, and it's very nice to see people here in such large numbers. See people not virtually on a Zoom screen, but in reality. So once again, thank you all for being here. And thank you, Vibhor, for having me do this panel. I'll try and be as controversial as I can. So let me start. So Vinay, since you're the furthermost, and you've taken a very early morning flight, let me see how awake you are. So tell me, how different does the hotel business look today vis-a-vis the business that we did pre-COVID? What's your view? What's changed? How are we different today? What have we learned from the crisis? And anything else that you want to talk about?
Industry has gone through real transformation. It's a moment of once in a lifetime for our industry. COVID, when it began, we weren't doing very well to begin with. The last decade, this industry has come together every year and found different reasons how we can perform better, what we can do better. But I think COVID is one shock that's woken everybody up, not only me. It has brought more opportunities in my mind. And anybody and everybody who has survived this last 2 years of most difficult period this industry could have seen in our lifetimes is better prepared, more resolute. We have to work it out. It's just the beginning. But if we were to hold on to these lessons that we have learned and how blindsided we were in April 2020, and it's easy to commentate on looking at the hindsight. I can talk for myself. I had no clue in April 2020 what tomorrow is going to look like. I was scared. I was hiding in my home and didn't know what next. A lot of us made very, very poor decisions during that testing time. Some of those consequences we have to face today. But I am sure in 2 years we have learned to live and survive better than any other industry because we face the most difficult challenge, us and aviation to a large degree. So I'm excited that we have survived. We are here 2 years hence. Market has shown confidence, and everybody in this room without a mask tells me that things are going to be good. So I don't know if I answer your question here or if there's
We'll come back to you. But let me hear some of the other panelists on this one. So, Javed, over to you.
Thank you.
A quick learning.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much. This is very interesting, full house, and congratulations to the board once again for another full house. Learning. I think the biggest learning was people realizing the importance of grace under pressure. Not all of us showed it, not us did. Those that did, I think came out of it a little better than others. So, of course, all of us faced it. It was something completely unscripted. And we dealt with it more than once. And I think with each successive wave, we learned how to cope with it a little better than before. So, in terms of recovery, the first time the big-ish hit, about 3 months. Next time was about a month. And the third time was about a week. In terms of its, how long it lasted. So, kudos and hats off to those in our leadership, as well as I must say our ownership, who went above and beyond. One looking at not saving livelihoods and not laying people off. There were great examples of that. Everybody getting involved and contributing to survival and taking personal stake in that, making personal sacrifices. Making sure, and I think there's some exemplary leadership that I saw, where there was nobody being retrenched, and I'm speaking from personal example, and then coming out of it much stronger than before. The other learning was how little we know, and how difficult it is to predict the future. And I think many of us, most of us, got it wrong. And this is one example that I think, fantastic that we got it wrong. Because all examples that were talking about recovery post-COVID were ranging in the 2023 and then more realistically in the 24 mode. I'm so happy that here we are in 22 and we find that things are either as good as 2019 already or better than ever before. So these are the learning. Thank you.
Thanks, Javed. So, Sharad, let me come to you. How crisper and tighter is your P&L today vis-a-vis pre-COVID numbers?
I think a lot of the great things that we all did during the pandemic, it just is important that we hold on to some of them, not all of them. And one of the key is, I think, the two keys that I would say where we've really gone overboard in not worrying too much about is, number one, our human resource. And I think it may sound like cliche, but really the biggest learning is, again, it tells us that human resource or your associates are the biggest asset. The second, I think, for hotels, for us has been our upkeep and cleanliness. And I say this not just from a P&L point, because you look after the hotel regularly, you don't need to renovate after 3 years, 4 years. You don't need to do those soft redos if you regularly look after a hotel. And the other bit is, I think our guests are a lot more conscious today about cleanliness and hygiene than they were. And I think fortunately for most of the larger brands, we got it right in the beginning, April, May of 2020, to say cleanliness, hygiene is going to be a key. So I think these two areas, we've been extremely generous and we've been very, very generous and rightfully, and I think we have the support of our owners as well. The rest of the thing, there are a lot of great things that we started, we learned on our own, our engineers learned to do a lot of things on our own, and we will continue to do those again.
Thank you. So Lokesh, coming back to your previous avatar, what would your advice be to owners now?
I don't think from my previous start, my advice, at least what I gave them, to change. I still think it's about making sure the investment is right for the location, the product, the brand. We're in a business which is 15, 20 years ahead. So whatever assets you're building today, it's not that easy to break it down and rebuild it more from scratch. I would still say, look at it 5 years later. ROI would also mean what's important to have. what's important to have from a revenue generation perspective, what's important to have to ensure efficiency of operations. Speak with the brand. I wouldn't say listen to the brand. I'm not sure we're always right. So a healthy debate is always good. But definitely listen to us. We do this in a few different places. And a dialogue would really help. Other than that, I think, to Sharat's point, I think it's really important from the day we design and build hotels that we think of our people. We think of taking care of them and ensuring that their workplace is somewhere where they're going to be safe, comfortable, and push to do their best. That's probably something I would say let's look at first, and it's normally the place we look at last to be able to squeeze it in. This is without a doubt the most important asset at any point of time, other than just efficiencies and how we work. But yeah, I don't think much else.
So I'll move to Ranjan. Ranjan, there are certain cost elements which are sure to come back because, during COVID, a lot of things, services were truncated, a lot of things were working, not working. What are the few things that you think should never creep back into our business?
I think basically what most of us have done is find efficiencies in pretty much every area, whether it's heat, light and power, payroll, cleaning supplies, the kind of technology that we use, digital check-ins, etc. So I think for me, this was a great way to introduce people into sort of light touch or less human interaction processes, and maybe that is something that I think to sort of increase productivity is something that hotels should continue looking at, whether it's eliminating having the need for 2 order takers by supplementing your traditional room service process with the QR code or an interactive TV so that the phone's not ringing off the hook and you've got 2 people that need to answer the call. So things like that, digital check-ins so that you don't need so many people at the front desk. Most of the big brands have that now, and I think a lot of customers have gotten used to using these tools, whereas the adoption wasn't very high earlier. So I think, speaking from Hilton's perspective, digital check-in is something that we really want to push. The owners that were a little sort of hesitant to invest in some of these technologies like enabling Bluetooth on the locks have seen the benefits of this technology. So I think this is some of the stuff that we should kind of keep for the years ahead. But I do agree with Sharat that a lot of the changes that we made were perhaps for this period and should not be made permanent. But then there are a lot of things that will help us enhance our efficiencies in the long term that we should absolutely continue to practice.
Thank you. I think everyone's agreeing with what Sharat said, but let me start with you, Sharat, again. We are all operating at manpower ratios which were very different from what we were used to. Dramatically different in some cases. How do you think you're servicing the customer who today is paying a higher price than what he was pre-COVID? And occupancy levels are back. So, since Vinay jumped to get the mic, Vinay, do you want to take that first?
Yeah, so look, I have a small point to make here. Customer may be paying higher price, but customer is still not paying the fair price.
You preempted my next question, by the way.
There's a big difference. We have been so underselling ourselves, that higher price doesn't equate to fair price. We have never spoken about the investment, the effort that goes in. We're talking about the cost that should come back. I'm saying cost can come back as long as we charge the customer to pay for those costs. I have no trouble serving the customer on the moon if he buys me a ticket to the moon. But we've been doing that. The things that we should remove is free breakfast should come back. We should charge the customer like West. In Western world, when somebody says it's a VIP, the amenity is 2 bottles of water. All of us have traveled and experienced that. So we have placed the VIP amenity in your room. Now, that is fair pricing. We need to recognize as an industry from 2019 to today, inflation is 20% cumulatively. So whatever we are getting is not getting enough.
You brought a smile to the faces of a lot of asset owners here. But I'll come back to pricing, and I think this is just the start of the bull run, if I may say so. But let's come back to Manning first. How is it? Do you think that our people are facing the pressure on the shop floor? They are working longer hours. They're doing more than what they were doing earlier. So, Javed, we'll start with you. What's your view on that? Because it's a tough situation down there.
Yeah, right. I agree. And I think that we have managed actually to save quite a few livelihoods. And it's good that we were going at a rapid pace even whilst the pandemic was on. So during last year, I think we opened roughly one hotel per month, which allowed us to replace and redeploy staff who couldn't be deployed in the original hotel for good reason. And I think that may probably not change, and I don't think it needs to change. So that's all right. I think that the rapid pace of growth, and I must say the confidence and foresight of our ownerships who took the time not only to build new hotels at that time, tough times, also to renovate hotels. So we've had a lot of money being invested in property upkeep and maintenance, in many cases doubling the inventory of a hotel, which couldn't have been done, frankly, any other time if business was running at that point at normal speed. So it comes to the question, what happens and where do we look for people? I think that, and what do you pay them? Obviously, whatever the business sustains is what people have to talk about in terms of remunerations. I think more important than that, and I think that it's really important that an organization now leverages the culture that it has. So let's figure out ways to make it a place which is pleasant to work in. Of course, it can be high-paced. Of course, there can be demands. Of course, the pace of work can be high. And I think that it's not relentlessly high. So there's a flexibility that is possible and should be exercised in terms of going the extra mile. I think leadership needs to go the extra mile to also allow for flexibility and downtime. And somebody asked, work-life balance, and I think that balance has to be found intertwined. And I don't know if it's bad. I think it's all right, frankly. I do it. I enjoy it. And I think that so do youngsters. And when I say youngsters, I'm speaking in a slightly informed manner. I have a 30-year-old son who also works in hotels. And one of the jokes is that people know what it's doing. But the thing is that, but I realized that gone are the days of the long summer vacations. These are the days of you're going to work, but you may enjoy the commute. I'm not joking. It's a fantastic drive from, say, Mysore to Kolkata, which is easy to do. And by the way, I've got my Jeep here in Bangalore, and I drove it all the way from Delhi. So it's true that every 4 or 5 hours we have a hotel. So I'm pretending I'm going to work, but actually I'm actually enjoying myself doing it. And so the Great India Road Trip, Radisson India Road Trip, is something that that's workable and is very desirable. I must also say that the road network is fantastic, so that also is working. But coming back to what it's like in terms of finding the people, I think caring and being charismatic in leadership, and not only being able to predict the future, from which we realize we're not that good at, but certainly looking after and reassuring our people in times of adversity. How you come across is really important on how you're likely to retain him or attract him back when going is better. And we know all this. There's an up cycle, it's not going to last forever, and there's a down cycle that doesn't last forever either, including COVID, much to my great surprise. And I've been in the business for a fairly long time. So I say that for sure things will get better. Nothing's ever going to stay the same. I think it's important, and charismatic leaders who are able to reassure and able to predict and to be able to attract talent back. It's more important, it's as important, I think, for staff and managers and team members to know who they're working with. That itself is an attraction. And I think, here we have a room full of general managers. There are some general managers who everybody wants to work with. There are some general managers, probably not. And I had a mix of both, and usually the latter. And the other thing is that you get to learn from all times. So either you learn what to do, and I've had some really fantastic examples, and you also realize what not to do. And I think that's the more important lesson. Because when you're in a position to call the shots and set the tone and set the culture, that's the time when you swear to, I swore to myself, I'll never do this to anybody else. And I jolly well practice it. And I think that's really what makes it interesting. We are very flattered that there are probably the cream of the talent from across the industry, these are professionals. And I think that beyond sounding like a mercenary, but it's easy to find plug-and-play GMs these days, or plug-and-play departmental heads, even plug-and-play associates who know how to make it work and fly under any flag, as long as they've got to know what the flag stands for, the core values of that flag. So it's easy to make that shift, and the shift will happen. We can't help it. We also got to be really shocked that we don't have to look in traditional places for where to source your manpower. I think, look at school-going kids who are looking at options for a career, looking at a livelihood, depends on what he's looking for, and training them as long as they have the right attitude. So if you have a robust training program, you'll never be bereft, else you're bound to be. And then you will have migration of talent, and so be it. And I think that not everybody, it's not an equitable world, it's not an egalitarian world. People who do well, of course, get the best paycheck. And that's the way it's going to be also. So if somebody is worth his weight and is worth a thought, then you will have to pay that as long as he delivers value to you. And you will have to retain him by a combination of things, not just some remuneration, but also the quality of work he's doing. What sort of life does he lead at the workplace where he spends most of his life? I think these are the things that are required and have become deep rhythm. You don't have to be a film star to be charismatic at all.
Thank you, David. Thank you. So, Lokesh, I'm going to make you where your operations at now. So, working with a very different manpower ratio requires re-engineering of processes, SOPs, the way you do things, redeployment of people across departments. So, why don't you throw some light on that? How do you think the industry is shaped up to do that? Or has it happened, or we will go back, realizing that the hotels are doing well, ADRs are at an all-time high, will we go back to our previous manning ratios? Will the story creep back in?
So I think I'll answer that in two parts. The first bit, I think COVID probably taught us in most cases through cross-functional working. And I think that's here to stay. And I think I will say this for all hotel operators, I think it's something that is now deeply built in, and it's just going to be enhanced. There's no other way around it. And cross-functional working, not just at the leadership and the supervisory level, but also our colleagues who are actually doing the work down the line. Whether it's been across rooms, it's been commercial functions, or it's been about food and beverage. I think staffing ratios the staffing ratios that we saw through COVID, are they here to stay? No. I think some of the ratios also factor the business. And our approach does need to be about an eye on cost, that it's now about revenue. And how do we enhance revenue? And once we have revenue, costs do get taken care of. Is it to say that we go back to where we were? No. But where is the staffing, where are colleagues actually required? I think that's something we'll be looking at a lot closer as an industry. Customer facing, absolutely, you need the people. You need someone to make the rooms, clean the rooms. Do you need someone to check them in? Absolutely. But do you need the same degree of multiple department heads or managers? Probably not. How do you work with the supervision? How do you train some of them? How do you bring them into the supervisory cadre, for lack of a better word? But really, I think there's some good talent out there. We need to learn how to give responsibility to our people a little better. We need to start trusting a little better from the old way of working, and perhaps the old structure of X team leader, assistant manager, manager, department head, XYZ to stop. To Javik's point, I think training, we need to go back to basics. And basics for us as an industry are training. And how we approach training, how we approach onboarding our people, how we approach onboarding them at a departmental level, and then how do we look at skills development, departmental trainers. I think all of this has a role to play in what we actually do. I think staffing ratios are two words that have been bandied around. Probably needs a little more of a deep dive, and it will vary from hotel to hotel. Resort and location may have a totally different requirement from a city box hotel. A hotel with large function event spaces has a completely different requirement. A hotel with food and beverage split over 5 levels has a completely different requirement, and just a ratio may not work. I think there's also an opportunity now to really see where, and I use the word gig economy loosely, but something like what, how do we enhance the quality of our casual workforce to supplement the full-time people that we have on the team? I think it's got to go beyond banquets and housekeeping, and I think this is something as an industry we need to really think through. But yeah, that's my 2 minutes.
Very well said. So,
Sorry. Just one more thing I said.
Sure.
But I think that there's something I'd like to say in addition to what, for me, most embarrassing experience, what made me feel very self-conscious at the start of the pandemic was work from home more when you have to get on a video call, which I was just not used to, and I didn't realize how silly I sound. But because you don't ever hear your voice until it's through this. So that was one. What I realized was that it made us comfortable dealing with technology, and it made us comfortable dealing with over the horizon work. So there were certainly certain jobs that we realized, certain roles and functions that could be clustered into a property, or from a property sharing with a cluster of hotels in an area. So we got about 6 clusters. I think we were organized across the country for 100 odd hotels. So it was impossible for 2 regional guys to manage. We got 6 chaps who are the top notch on a center of excellence, report card basis, who were able to mentor and guide general managers who were even making a debut, or were first time, or just come up from the ExCom level into unit head roles. And I think these guys were able to mentor and steady a whole lot of 5 or 6 to 10 general managers. Similarly, even down the line, whether it's a revenue management function, or a TOSM function, or a purchase function, or a learning and development function, this sort of job enrichment that happened. I'm not sure if it was intentional, but it was expedient at the time. But I think that this is the way it set the blueprint for us again on how we are going to move forward. What this does is, it shows clearly to people who are not there yet as to what the career path is, and that's a big, let's say, engagement for people who are getting into the business. So these guys have got to look at, what are the relevant options for me when I'm starting a job. So where am I likely to go? And this is an illustration of where you go and of roles evolving and developing where none existed. So I think these are fantastic opportunities, and this has been taught to us by COVID, perhaps accelerated what we wanted to do, and I think it played off pretty well and helped us survive.
Thanks. So Sharad, tell me on the shop floor, everyone's spoken about the importance of training. How is training being done differently today than it was in the past?
And Lokesh touched on our third party associates, contract, casuals, and I think a large banquet event today, hotels was never rocket science. Service, there's no rocket science, and I think what we've been able to do very successfully is a lot of the training focus has been number one on, of course, handling guests and body language, communication. The other bit is on learning somebody else's job. And really, I think especially for people who wish to grow, it becomes all the more exciting. You know, so a guy who's in food and beverage, it's extremely exciting for that associate to be told, listen, I want you to learn from us. It's not just good for the company, it's also great for the individual. So a lot of our focus is there. And I just want to add another, since we're talking of manpower, and you know, we've been dented very badly as an image, as an industry, as employers in the last 2 years, and I think a lot of hard work needs to go to get people back. You speak to people in hotel schools, there are a number of admissions in hotel schools that are not less than that used to be 3-4 years back. So I think there's a lot of hard work that is required there, and you know, one of the things that we've done, and we talk of efficiency, we're now saying it's 9 hours up, go home. Yeah. And look, it's a mindset. It is a mindset.
Can you afford to say that with your new manpower ratios?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I would again, I would agree with Lokesh. I wouldn't go with ratio. I would look at the payroll cost as a percentage. You know, a lot of hotels are doing more revenue in food and beverage than in rooms. So you know, a 300-room hotel, but more revenue coming in from banqueting and restaurants. It's not very relevant to say, you know, you are a ratio 1.1, 1.2, 1.5. So I would look at it more from a cost percentage. But absolutely doable. We've done it in a lot of our hotels, and you know, we're determined. We're determined that it is going to be 9 hours, and it is going to be 9 hours. It's mindset. It's mindset. You start doing it, you start enforcing it, it happens. And it's a risk. It's a risk. It will bite us in the beginning. But I think we need to take some drastic steps now. If not now, never. I think from a talent point, if now, never, because if there are no people getting into hotel schools, if there are no people wanting to join hotels, we have a much more serious problem 3 years, 4 years, 5 years down the line when you look at people developing managers.
So let me come to Ranjan. How do you think we can attract people to this industry? How do we get people to say that hotels are a great place to work?
So I think obviously
We've done a terrible job in the last 2 years, so.
I think if you were to ask me what's the biggest damage that's happened over the last 2 years, it's definitely been our employer branding or the industry appeal to students. So just as Sharad was saying, absolutely, we were never really the preferred choice to begin with, and this has just set us back. The problem has just intensified a lot now. So I think it starts with giving them, our biggest challenges that have always been facing when you want to hire manpower is the kind of working hours that we have. I completely agree, we've got to do a much better job of sort of giving them a great place to work, whether it's from a timings perspective, flexibility. We've unfortunately now, to Javed's point, you know, with work from home and companies realizing that you don't need people to come to work every time, unfortunately, it's just now become a little bit more difficult because a lot of the other industries have just added this new flexibility and saying, listen, out of your 5-day work week, which in itself was something we couldn't manage, you just need to come in to work 3 days, and the other 2 days you can work from home. So in a city like Bangalore, beautiful as it is, you don't have to waste 3 hours of your life like you did on those 2 days. So that is something that we will have to work towards. We're starting to look at some of our property roles and saying, while we thought that hospitality team members could never remotely work, but we've done that, and we've done that pretty efficiently in the last 2 years. So how can we have some sort of hybrid setup so that we can compete with some of these other industries and say we can give you flexibility as well? How can we attract some people that are available for work maybe just for 4 or 5 hours? And that is the time when you've got a big banquet, you know, as some of the other people were saying, hospitality isn't rocket science. We know that the two sort of busiest times of the day are breakfast and when you've got a social event for 500 packs. You typically don't have the manpower to cater to both of these. Now it's a mix of cross-training, having people work across the departments, deploying technology, and in some cases actually charging a premium for some things that are a bit more labor intensive as well. So I think we've done some analysis on how do hotels in Singapore, for example, which is a reasonably hospitable market. I mean, it's not as cut and dry as you would find the West. I mean, hospitality in Singapore is reasonable. It's nowhere close to the levels that you offer in India, but they're able to work with manpower ratios of full service hotels of 0.7, 0.65. Now, of course, they have a lot of big box hotels which also lend themselves to a little bit of efficiency. But one of the things that we realized was they take one of the most critical tasks that a department head performs is rostering. Whereas in our cases, it's typically the duty manager who's doing the shifts for front office, but in Singapore hotels, that's probably the number one task, most important task that they perform. They make sure that they've got their manning right for their check-in times and for their checkout times, so that they've got just enough people for when there's a big rush, but at that lean period when there aren't people checking in because of the flight patterns or the travel patterns, you don't need 3 people. So the Indian mentality of I need 2 people at the front desk and I need a duty manager, it's just how it is. We will have to kind of change some of those things, is how I see the future from a manpower perspective. And I completely agree. The approach we have to take is payroll cost and not ratios. If you make more money and you need to provide certain services, then they have to be given. We shouldn't let the owners get into this whole ratio thing and dictate, or other stakeholders dictate to us that this is the ratio you should have. It has to be very scientific, productivity based, and you know, that should decide how many people you need and when.
But there's a shortage of manpower today. This is the current crisis that the industry is going through. So how do you think the short-term crisis can be addressed? What do you think we can do now in the near short term to tide over this? Because you know, occupancies are back, rates are better, but we're just not getting people. What is the current need?
I think apart from the working environment, we also have to look at our compensation structures. We have to make it a little more variable. So if people are working harder or having to clean more rooms, firstly it should be voluntary and there should be something in it for them. And the gig economy is really important. So we're all going to have those back-to-back groups, big weddings, etc. We need to find that stable, qualified workforce that is happy to come in and work for a few hours. And we need to really take really good care of the FTEs that are working with us to make sure that this is an industry that they stick around even after marriage, even after they've got 2 kids, because we are able to give them that environment where they can see a long-term career. So that's what
I think catch them young, give them flexibility. You know what Master shared. There are so many people who aspire to be in the profession, but don't know where to go. You know, and a lot of kids who would finish class 12 and a couple of months before they go to college, they want to do something, they don't know where to go. It's only, what are the kind of people references you get is, my friend's dad works in a hotel, so look, I'll put in a word and you go for internship. But those are the opportunities one can look at, and you never know how many of those people will really end up being in hotels and will have careers. I've actually had a lot of people who just come in as, summer internship, 3 months, and unfortunately, all of those are through friends. There's no proper system process that we've been able to put there. And give flexibility. I think give flexibility, a lot of roles which can be clustered, a lot of roles you needn't be in the hotel every, on 5 days of the week. But yeah, I think I really feel, just catch them young, let it grow into them that this is a great business to be.
I think the biggest turnoff that we've got as feedback from colleges is the industrial training. We really need to make that experience better. It's the number one problem. The moment the guys have come into second year and had a taste of that 3 month, 4 months, 6 months internship, 70% of the time that's when most of them say, I'm not working in hotels. So I think we need to kind of make that whole internship process a little bit more inclusive. We can't treat them like cheap labor saying, well, I peeled onions when I was an industrial trainee, so that's what you're going to do. peeled garlic, actually, that was worse. So this is some of the things that we need to do to sort of make, I mean, our industry does have its challenges, but so does banking, so does IT. It's not a bed of roses. If you look at some of these online Glassdoor, etc. I mean, TCS may sound really sexy, but there are people who are talking about the kind of culture and the pressure that they have there. So I think we need to sort of project a better image out there, and not just project, but actually create a better environment and show that to people, saying, look, hotels can mean a little bit of hard work, but it can also be very, very rewarding in these ways, in terms of look at examples of people that have grown, have moved outside of India, have made a career in Southeast Asia, the Middle East, the amount of travel you can do, the perks that you have on the job. If you're someone, the millennials love traveling, so I think apart from airlines, this is the only industry that can really give them those opportunities. So we really need to sort of make our industry happening and fun and attractive again.
I think another thing to consider is, at a fundamental level, we need to create a culture of well-being. And I think we lost the trust of our teams in last 2 years. The way we reacted in a knee-jerk manner. And that should be, we should not be apologetic in saying we got it wrong. We should admit it, and we should restore that confidence. I'm blessed to be with the ownership, which was pretty much one of the ownerships which didn't take that drastic step. We were the first ones to restore, and anybody earning less than 30,000, no salary cut was given. But we are not competing in today's day only within the industry. It's not Marriott, Hilton, Accor, Intercon competing with each other or Lemon Tree. It's the banking. Banking starts the guy as associate vice president title, puts him on a bike and sends him to take some enrollment of a private banking customer. He fills the form and comes back. They have created very meaningful, relatable, and instill a pride in those people. And we need to be smart about it. We can't be blasé, and we can't just start changing titles. And that's a little shallow, what I don't mean. But we need to think out of the box. Anna has spoken about, giving them right exposure, introducing them to the industry in a better format than industry training programs, the way we're showcasing them. And going to newer avenues, because in last 2 years, our hoteliers have understood they have one of the best soft skills in this country. Soft skills are fungible, and they can go to any industry and deploy that skill that they have acquired, and bank, retail, e-commerce, call center are all prepared to pay for it. So our challenge is not just small incremental change. At fundamental level, how many times we make people feel good? We don't, I think Ritz-Carlton was the only company which spoke ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. And we have all said it and heard it in the last 20, 30 years of our career. But how many times, and again, it happens to be my ownership company, Indigo, they are the ones who brought immense pride in those girls in that cabin. Who would have thought the entire plane cabin will be females? Who would have thought that girl would have so much of power to say no, that most arrogant of the men in that plane wouldn't dare to speak up? So we need to think a little bit larger and a bit more courageous. And I think that's what we need to do as an industry, and give that confidence in our team member that one single review by a customer is not a reason for them to be reprimanded.
Very well said. Yeah, and I'm also a great admirer of Indigo for the humor it brings into the business. It's absolutely fabulous. And of course, girl power and so on. I really am a big advocate for that. I wish, I wish that half the students were ladies. But but that's just a wish, and we are going to figure out what we can do to make it happen. So that's what I'd like to say about this. I think that youngsters don't have any patience, so they're not willing to pay their dues like I was doing. Perhaps I was under-informed also, and perhaps I didn't have that many choices. And here's where I come back. I don't think there's anything wrong. If as a student you find that you're not, and there's a story. Now I'm telling you a story. So one of my college professors said that you can become anything. You can become a doctor, you can become an engineer, don't become a chef, because you'll never get married. So how could that be? So he says, because in the papers it comes wanted doctor, wanted engineer, you can never see wanted chef. That was back in the day, of course. Now Sanjeev Kapoor proved me wrong. But and he's a batchmate, by the way. So so I think what's really important is that one, we need to train them for a trade. Now, if the college is not doing it, educating college, or the Institute of Hotel Management is not doing that, or if there are school students who don't want to study but want to work and earn a livelihood, it's very noble, nothing wrong with it, and they can study later. Make them competent at something, and I think occupy a space in their minds that says that this is the place where I earned my first salary, and it'll never ever be erased from his memory. So that's one. The second thing I'd like to say to those who say that I'll get higher salary in something affiliated where I can use my people skills and other soft skills, very right, and I think they deserve that if that's what they want to do. But I always ask these people the question that will you ever be the boss of this business? And that's very telling, because if you think about it, it's highly unlikely. But in Bill, here I am, a hotel management graduate who actually, can become a general manager of a business. And which other businesses allow you to do that? I don't know, unless you're then study for that question mark. So, and whether you want to study, and you don't want to, that doesn't mean that they are silly. It's just that they don't want to do it. It's not a sign of intelligence. Mom marks you in learning college. That's the other thing. And I think that if this youngster doesn't have, and many youngsters actually have it all mapped out, and my greatest admiration for them, I had some of them in my class as well. But I'm not one of those characters who have no clue what he was doing. So, there are many like me, and there are many like me who need to be guided by chaps like me who are at the stage at the other end of the, let's say spectrum, who can reassure them and can show them that it can actually work. And let me tell you another nice thing about our business is for the qualification, I have education qualification, the level of influence I wield is highly disproportionate. It always was, even as a lobby manager, as a front office manager, or as general manager, and now, it's even better. So I think that to be able to influence people and to do them favors and to earn goodwill, it's a fantastic opportunity. And it's not all bad. And of course, there may be disparities and disbalances, but I think our industry and this business has a lot going for it. And I, in fact, spoken about it for a long time. And I think it's our responsibility also to speak to those youngsters.
Thank you, Javed. I can see Vibhor signaling me there. So we'll just open the floor for questions. But before that, let me let out a secret. Vinay was on a Vistara flight this morning. So questions from the audience, please. Can we have the mics going around, please?
Hi, this is Gaurav from Bindra, India. We really talk about the hotel business, how's it coming, from the COVID pandemic and all that. What kind of a consumer trends you are now looking, post the pandemic, as I can say, which really, going to go long term. So, is there any new insights coming out of the consumer in the hotel industry, which can really benefit, in the long run?
I think in the long run, technology will play a huge role. Technology will play a huge role, and what the pandemic also taught us is, we used to say technology means we're going against personalization. But I think we've learned as a company to use technology for personalization, and you know, might just have time where you know, you check in your hotel, you're a very known member, you have your phone, which becomes a key. You go on the treadmill, and the treadmill reads what speed you want, what incline you want. I think technology will play a huge role and will continue to, and yet make it personalized.
I think added to that, health and hygiene was always there, but health, hygiene, cleanliness are paramount now. And how we continue to reinforce that and communicate that. Our customers are far more aware, conscious, and wanting to know. I think that's here to stay like that.
Another aspect, something that COVID has taught us, people will always long to be in this kind of a setup of social. They can't stay at home. You can provide them Zoom call, Teams meeting. They are functional but not social. So people will come back. We do our job good, they'll come back to us. And we have a role to play in the society for the sanity. So just get on with our jobs.
In consumer behavior, we get the sense that there are younger people traveling, there are younger families traveling. Of course, they're traveling by road if they can, because that's become very enjoyable. The other thing is that, to our immense surprise, Jammu and Kashmir attracts more guests than it ever did before. Goa, we had 5 hotels, that was too much, now we have 6 more. Some of these things, I think, are to me inexplicable. But certainly, I think the joy of traveling within your own country and discovering things that you heard about but not experienced and seen is something that all of us are experiencing now, and good for us. Because I think that the expected hit of the absence of the foreign traveler is not as hard, probably almost not felt, thanks to the resurgence in the domestic traveler. And I think we've been all the better for that. So that's our sense. I think the other thing is also, authentic experiences which are based on the location of where the hotel is, on what it stands for, including personalities. In the hotel, personalities who speak that language, offer that culture from a point of view of a native, local knowledge. These are very high credibility experiences and form really memorable moments forever, which set apart holiday. And I think and the need and the requirement for hotel companies to develop these and certainly showcase them is a great opportunity, and also something that we've done really well.
I think another thing that hotels did very well was capture delivery, food delivery as a stream of revenue. And I think that is something that we should work very hard not to let go of. Most of the hotels now have this sort of separate subdivision in room service, which is backed orders or delivery through Zomato, Swiggy, or even through your own direct sort of delivery mechanisms. So it's important that now that the Indian customers have realized that hotels are a reasonable place to order from, I think it's a great way to sweat your asset and earn a very useful anything between, depending on the kind of hotel and your food and beverage offering, anything between 2 lakhs to sort of 14 lakhs a month that never existed before, using the same kitchen, the same manpower, and just investing in some really great packaging and a little bit of marketing. So I think that is something that we should really work hard to sort of maintain moving ahead.
So with that, we'll end the panel. Thank you so much for being very patient listeners. Thank you, and thank you, panelists, for a great session.
next panel, we'd like to have a partner presentation. BMW has been partner with us, and I'd like to invite Mr. Gaurav Vyas on stage. Mr. Gaurav Vyas, Head of Corporate Sales and Used Cars, BMW India, is a sales professional with an entrepreneurial vision, with 18 years of experience in the auto industry, and has spent close to a decade with BMW. Please put your hands together for Mr. Gaurav Vyas.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Am I audible? Yeah, okay, perfect. So, thank you, Vibhor. Thank you, Hotelier India and NJW for hosting us over here. And thanks to, quite an insightful session from the panel. Lot to learn from hotel industry, the champions of customer experience, and brand like us, the manufacturing brand like us, always crave to know more about the customer experiences, to learn more from the hospitality industry, to handle the customer, to provide the delight and the perfect experience to the luxury customers across our network. This year has been a very special year for BMW. This is our 15th year. We are 15 years younger in this country, celebrating our 15th anniversary this year. We started in 2007, and we have also delivered our 100,000 car. So it's 1 lakh car which we have already delivered in India. So thanks to the entire customer base, especially hotel industry, wherever, because you are also kind of a mobility user, luxury mobility user for us as a brand, and absolutely a kind of a great experience when we tie up with the hotel and become a luxury mobility partner with all of you. We can harness our ecosystem together, because more or less the profile of customers which we deal with and you deal with more or less the same. So thanks to you all. BMW as a brand is also committed to transform itself into a carbon neutral, and that's also going to be your challenge as well, apart from all the challenges which the panel has mentioned. So I think hotel industry is also working to become more and more carbon neutral going forward, and that will also pave the way for our collaboration at the higher level. And that is why BMW has also decided to become a carbon neutral company going forward. We are also launching, or rather by 2025, we'll have a factory which will be totally carbon neutral and produces electric vehicles going forward. In India, we already have launched a slew of products for in the electric segment, and whether it is an SUV or it's a sedan or it's a hatch, we have all available for hotel industry to work something around the carbon neutrality as far as the mobility is concerned for the hotel industry. One video from our amazing product in terms of electric car, and especially the SUV, which can help you to think more on upgrading a kind of an electric car for your hotel. Yeah, so these are the two products which we especially brought in India, not all for the electric lovers, but especially also very relevant for hotel industry as well. Ladies and gentlemen, the iX and the i4, the sedan and the SUV, app products for hotel industry, and I think this will also pave the way for the electric mobility across all hotels. Special features I can say is that we are coming up with overall and battery warranty for 8 years, a lot of space in the car, and also the fast charging facility for within the hotel itself. So I think that will help you guys in terms of initiating the electric mobility in your hotel and also bringing the better customer experience. Apart from that, I think what panel has also discussed that if we want to go forward, there has to be a lot of collaboration. And we as a brand, as a sustainable brand, would like to collaborate with the hotels all across, all hotel brands in India. And there are various ways which we can do it. The first and foremost is that let's bring in more customer. One of the panelists says that there are various young people who are traveling, coming to the hotel, and I'm standing in the city of unicorns, the startups. What best platform than this then to talk about that? Yes, more and more younger people are traveling, and they're traveling from road. And it's better that we come together. And BMW is very excited to tie up with the hotels in terms of more customer drives, more weekend drives, more staycation drives for the consumer, and that will help us to collaborate not only to provide them the luxury mobility on the road, but also help to get them in your best of the properties and experience that. Apart from that, food is a major way to connect, and BMW does a lot of events with various hotels in terms of culinary. But yes, we want more and more engagement with the hotels from the food perspective, from the food connect perspective, from the culinary event perspective. As far as the drives are concerned, we've done a lot of drives, and what I can remember is a JW drive from Delhi to Mussoorie, and a lot of CEOs, CXOs, everybody went there, and it was a very nice experience. Culinary event we've done recently with Four Seasons in Bangalore, and people loved it. The consumers love it. Consumer really exciting, and recently with the Ritz-Carlton Bangalore, we have placed some of our BMW bikes in the hotel, and customers love to take it in Cover Park in the morning and the evening. And that's why we do a very sustainable engagement with the hotels by providing a bike at the hotel, which can be used by the consumers and also try and experience both the brands together. So these are few collaborative kind of initiatives which we can take together and serve the customer. Also, especially for the hotel industry, BMW is also going forward and initiated a Hotel Advantage program, provide the special pricing for the cars, not only for purchasing at the hotel level, but also the staff members of the hotel can also avail those prizes. You have QR codes on your table, and you can access various offers of BMW by scanning the QR code. But there are various offers within this Hotel Advantage program which we have brought in, not only from the pricing perspective, but also from the perspective of giving you a one point of contact as a dedicated relationship manager for all hotel customers. Benefit extended to your family members, something related to mobility where covering various things in terms of not only from the insurance side, but from our side, whether it is tire, whether it is service, it's all covered for the hotel industry if we provide the product and collaborate with you. And this is a 7 series video, Pinnacle product to end with, and looking forward to have a lot of collaboration with the hotel industry, and looking forward to have more and more engagement of the same set of customers which BMW and the hotel industry enjoys. Thank you very much.
We move on, and the next session is aptly titled Taking Charge. Without much ado, let me call upon stage the moderator for this session, Mr. Mandeep Lamba, President South Asia at HVS Anurag, to introduce the panel. Begin with Mr. Aditya Raheja, Director, Star Hotels, Mr. J.B. Singh, President and CEO, Interglobe Hotels, Ms. Nirupa Shankar, Director, Brigade Hospitality, Mr. Vikram Kota, Chief Executive Officer, GRT Hotels and Resorts, and Mr. Zubin Saxena, Managing Director and Vice President Operations South Asia, Radisson Hotel Group.
Very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Great to see a full hall, as we heard the other panelists saying earlier. It's great to see events come back into the physical state. We missed them for a long while. So happy to see all of you here, and a very good evening and a warm welcome. What we're going to try and do in this panel, because I know we're holding you back from your drinks and dinner, is to try and wind up as quickly as we can, because in any case, the earlier panel asked all the questions and answered them. So there's very little left for all of us to talk about. In many ways, thank you so much, Vikram, and all of you for doing making our life simpler. But what we'll do is we'll still try and put a little bit into perspective, and then we're going to open it for all of you to ask questions to anybody on the panel. So what we'll do to start with is, we all know that the pandemic was the most disruptive event that we've seen in our lifetimes. We all dealt with it, thankfully, by the grace of God. We're all here today to talk about it in hindsight, and we have the hindsight. But I'm going to ask each of you, and what we'll try and do is we'll try and keep our answers short and crisp so that everybody gets an opportunity and we can wind up quickly. One takeaway, one lesson, one learning, which is the most significant one that you had from your experience with the COVID. And I'll start with you. I'll start with the person with the least hair. I think that would be you, Zubin. So Zubin, all yours.
I lost quite a few of them recently over the last couple of years. A very short answer. Well, you said one thing. Okay, one thing. The lesson for us and for me personally was the realization that the variable cost in our industry is more variable than we thought it would be.
Mine was, I believe in the theory of constraints, and I think COVID taught us how to be creative when you are under severe constraint, because I saw everything change, right? We were used to getting certain types of customers into our rooms, and then we had to change. Bangalore being, say, 95% business client, and we had to change our entire customer base. Areas we weren't getting any F&B revenues, so we had to change the way we did our catering. We had to go out to customers instead of them coming to us. So I think it was creativity when you're constrained.
Fabulous.
I think for me, the biggest takeaway was the importance of communication. When times are good, operators managing, everything's going fine, that's great. But when COVID hit, the importance of communication with the operator, with customers, with vendors, I realized how important that is.
I think largely the business is not agile. It's very, very hard, which means to pivot is very, very difficult. And in my mind, I think if the industry must use this as an opportunity to put together a big reset and challenge the status.
Absolutely. Vikram.
Thank you, Mr. Lamba. And I think as a representative of owning a company of hotels, I think the greatest lesson which we learned from the entire pandemic is cash flows. I think a lot of emphasis has to be put on cash flows and how we manage assets. And I think we have learned a great lesson there. And I think if ever this pandemic or any other thing comes back, I think we are well prepared.
Brilliant. Cash is king. Which leads me to my next question. From one, we move to 2 points. So one thing that we now all know is this is perhaps not the last time that something of this nature has disrupted the industry, and it could happen again. How are you preparing, or better prepared today, having learned your lessons over the last 2 years. If something like this, God forbid, were to happen again, 2 things that make you more prepared to deal with it than you were earlier. And this time we'll start with the person with the most help.
I think one thing definitely that held us in good stead, and I think we should continue to do, is not being over leveraged, right? Hotels are expensive assets to build. They take a long time to pay off. It could take 7 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, depending on the nature of asset. So obviously the debt levels are extremely high, and there were a lot of casualties with COVID. The ones that managed to sort of swim and not sink were the ones that were financially very conservative. So I think being a little financially conservative, and of course what helped also was having diversification of assets to help you tide over those tough times. So I think similarly from a hotel ownership perspective, of course, like I said, it's being financially conservative. And the second thing is, I think you always have to keep questioning, like not just keep doing things that they were always done. So I think everything changed. All our beliefs, like as was discussed in the previous panel, okay, this should be the staff ratio for this kind of a hotel. This should be your parameters. These are your rules for all your expense line items. I think everything can be questioned. And I think the hotel industry, typically from what I've seen, is hasn't needed to think too much outside the box. And I think COVID has made everybody sort of question everything that has always been done. So I think this constant questioning of can we keep improving on what we currently do is one, and of course being financially prudent is the other.
I would say that I think we're a lot leaner now, not as top heavy as earlier. So in the eventuality, hopefully it doesn't happen, we have learned to be a lot more flexible. And my second point would be pretty much the same as Nirupa's, which would be the financial prudence.
I think it's time that we as an industry also identify the core for ourselves. There's a lot of talk about manpower coming back and etc. etc. And these are perfect climates to see how you strategically reset your human resource agenda. We can't be doing everything. The airline business 20, 30, 40 years ago would advertise with the chefs bringing you lobsters in first class cabin. They were never great at making food. So they hived that off, and they continued to hive off till they found their core, which is getting people from point A to point B. Industries go through a commoditization cycle. And if one of the big takeaways from COVID has been the industry did get commoditized. If we look at our people are joining the industry, that's a very worrying trend. It obviously means that the industry is really got commoditized. So therefore, to bring focus back, there has to be a lot of introspection in identifying what is the core of the industry. Maybe different asset classes will have different cores. And that's where the energy should be put in. The last panel talked about higher pay scales and not ratios. Absolutely right. We need to focus in the areas that are fundamental for us and create a whole program around the industry. So you bring in and you break down talent into smaller pools so that they can be managed more effectively. So I think that's something that we all will have to walk that path very, very soon. The climate is happening in the finance side of the business. Because there's equal amount of churn in the financial sort of industry, in that side. And you're seeing a lot of outsourcing. You're seeing a lot on the HR side. The cost will go up, but over time you'll bring in efficiencies. So I think that's an area that's possibly going to come to play pretty soon.
I think taking from what Mr. JB said, as owners, I think we should stop looking at employees, associates as a human resource, and we should start looking at them as human assets. Because when you say human resource, you're on the liability side, accountant. And when you say asset, whenever there is trouble, you safeguard those assets. Liabilities you try and reduce when there is trouble. So I think it's a time that owners take cognizance of this and start looking at employee talent base as assets, and they have to look at this in three-pronged way. One is the acquisition, how they're going to do the talent acquisition. The second is the retention, and the third is the engagement, which is the most important. Once you get in the talent, how you're going to engage them. And as you all know, hotels are multi-generational. I mean, we have baby boomers, we have Gen Zs, and you have millennials. So how do you appeal to each class of those employees is very important. And it's up to not only the general managers and the operational heads, but up to the owners also pitch in and make sure that we take care of this asset. And this is what is going to hold us in good stead in the future.
So, you said this is not the last time, or this not the first time. This is also not the last time. So, if you go back 20 years, you will see, there have been 3 such episodes happening at the interval of roughly 5 to 7 years. Start 2020, you had 9/11, you had the financial meltdown. Now this has happened, and there's going to be something else in the future that will happen again. Every 5 to 7 years, the economic cycle business cycle will correct itself for one reason or the other. And this has been more true for our industry than for perhaps many others, because we are the first. The hospitality industry tracks the closest to the economic cycle. So that is, this is going to happen even in the future. So now, to answer your question, so what happens if it comes around the next time? So I think we're quite cognizant of the fact that such cycles will emerge every 5 to 7 years. They'll come back again in the future. We have been consistent at unlocking economies of scale. So we've had a very fast, a very strong growth journey. We are at 108 hotels now. We've got 50 hotels in the pipe, opening 1 hotel every month, roughly for the next 5 years. That will continue. The important bit and the important learning that came out is the system has to grow, but your economies of scale have to continue to be unlocked. And hence, over the last 2 or 3 years, we have taken a lot of such costs out of the system. And when I say that, I mean commonalized procurement. I'm not talking manpower, and Javed mentioned on the previous session. Of course, we had manpower constraints as well, which we channelized to our new hotels. So for us, our future growth will support any of these market abnormalities. And I think we are very well prepared to go through the business cycles up and down and channelize and unlock these synergies, both on the cost side and on the revenue side. So that's been our story.
Okay, super. There's been a lot of talk in the previous panel and also just now as we passed around the question on this whole issue of staff, manpower. And I think if you look and read what is happening across the globe, across the hospitality industry, and even for that matter, travel and airline as well, I think the single largest problem that we are facing is manpower, hiring and retention of people. Now, we've, over the years, I think all of us are responsible in one way or the other, and I think to some extent we continue to do that, is, when somebody comes for let's say that, a friend of mine says that his son wants to become a hotelier, and when he comes to meet me, one of the first questions that I used to ask is, it's a very tough line. Are you willing to put up long hours? It's very, physical. We bashed the industry. We created this whole image that it's, a dungeon to work in. We've not been able to, create the whole atmosphere that it is equally sexy. It can be, right? And like someone said in the previous panel, that all industries have the stress. It's not all hunky-dory everywhere, right? But we've somehow not been able to get out of that, right? We're still stuck in a whole lot of old paradigm, old legacy. Someone said, I peel garlic, so you will do the same. The whole bashing happened during the industrial training. We actually did an HVS, we actually did a report on how trainees felt after they came back from their industrial training. We actually mapped the whole stuff. So there is a problem which we need to rectify. It's the industry really needs to wake up to this, because this is going to become the single most severe challenge going forward on retaining people. So I'm going to pass it around on one idea that you have which you think will help change this paradigm or help in retaining talent. What do we need to do to attract people to work in this industry? And we can start with you from the far end, Vikram.
Thank you. Very interesting question. I think most of you must have gone through the Gallup survey and the book which was written. Very clearly, research shows that people don't leave organizations. They leave their managers, they leave their supervisors. So I think first and foremost, I think the training, attitudinal training, has to be given to supervisors and to the managers who take care of a team of people. And once we get on to that and we are able to change that mindset there, it's not that I peel garlic and you peel garlic. Something new has to come out of it. And that can only come out if from the owners, the general manager takes care of those supervisors and managers and treats them as equal partners and make sure that they are given enough freedom to motivate, incentivize, and engage the people down the line. And that's what is going to change the culture. And this, everything, if you call it in one word, it's the culture. And I think the culture of hospitality has to change, and the time has come to change now. Because hospitality is dependent on people, and it's one of the intensive customer-facing industries. And we can't do hybrid working, work from home. Yes, back offices can do, but there's always a customer facing, and what we call the last mile smile has to be there. And that can come only with this attitudinal change, and it's a mindset. And it will take time, but we have to accelerate that. And I think that is the need of the industry today.
I think that's a very good point, and it all starts at leadership. But there are other things that people look for. They look for adding value to themselves. The industry itself doesn't upgrade itself to play with cutting-edge technology, remain outside the whole digital universe. It does not bring in best practices at every level. People who work in this industry will find that they're not adding any value to themselves. Quite often I have made these remarks that the industries become very insecure. Even when you are at an industry event, you are possibly, all of us here possibly represent, or our colleagues possibly represent just 150,000 rooms. There's another 30 lakh rooms outside, so we're not representative of the industry. I think we have to be very careful how we map the industry. And what is the best level of engagement is career building. And then they need to play with toys in the building that will empower them to go outside and do more. I mean, even someone who's out there working in banquets needs to grow as supervisors, needs to go out into retail. Retail is just not about selling. There's merchandising, there's numbers, there's all kinds of things that go on with it. And industry, I think, seriously needs an outside-in view. I'm not from this industry, I've been here for 7, 8 years. I see it all the time. It seriously needs an outside-in view. And I think it's very, very important for the industry folks to also step out and see what's happening in the world outside. We are so far back in technology. Even a simple accounting system cannot get consolidated on the cloud. We are so far back. We really have to wake up. Otherwise, and to your point, bring in solid leadership at the top. The country is going to be all about scale. This country is growing rapidly. We all know that, if we were to believe all indices. And we have to simplify the model. We have to make it engaging. We have to understand what it is to manage scale. And maybe the narrative needs to change from not saying what will we do next when this happens again, but how do we maximize the next 20 years? That's the narrative that we must consider for ourselves. What is it that we need to do to max out the next 20
years? Today, I would say the most important department in any hotel today is not sales, it's HR and training, and I think it's been so ever since COVID has hit us. So there's no one answer here, but I would just say that as an owner, I just ask all the operators here to as you said, Vikram, the first phase of, I think, the induction is something where we all fall short. We're short of people, so we're in a rush to get people in, which means the training process gets shortened. I think that needs to be looked at. We need to follow the whole process. Probably 10 years back, those 2-3 weeks of rigorous training needs to happen.
So actually, I think the question you asked is a very complex one. How do you hire better talent into an industry? It's something, it's like you can do a whole McKinsey consulting project on this, and I think it's not something that can change overnight. It's something that you might be able to change over 5 or 10 or even 15 years. Because I'm comparing with how real estate used to be. I've been now in real estate more than 15 years. And when I started off, real estate was not an industry that was very well looked upon. You never got people from extreme colleges or anything like that. But slowly, what I've seen over the last 10-15 years is that the leaders in the industry, and it could be a Lodha in Bombay, it could be like a Brigade in Bangalore. We all started hiring people from ISB, IIMs. That was not really seen in real estate before that. But what do you do to attract those kind of high-skilled people into real estate? And everybody need not be from the top colleges, but you might need 2 or 3 people to start thinking at a higher level, becoming more strategic. So it's a very complex question, because I think there's so much that has to be done. And if I think today, how can I attract a smart young person who has multiple career opportunities into hospitality? I have to think of one, how do I make fun for the millennials, right? Right now, like you said, it sounds very drudgery, oh, I have to go work on all holidays, all the fun days are gone. How do I not make that happen? How can I give that work-life balance? How can I avoid extremely long hours? How can I make it fun? How can I show them the growth opportunities that they have? You can tell them, hey, you try this for 3 years. See if you like the industry. If you don't like it, these are the industries. You can get into real estate. You can get into some other industry. You can get into, there's so many, actually hospitality is a great base for so many different things. I think Vinay mentioned about social skills being very fungible, and it truly is. I know we hired somebody from the airline industry. She was an air hostess for 16 years, and I've hired her as my customer relations manager. She's great because she knows how to deal with irate customers, and you get a lot of those in real estate. So I think it's a pretty complex one that cannot be, one that cannot change in 1 or 2 years. It's something that slowly has to happen, and I think leaders in the industry, right, like all your top brands of Hilton, Radisson, Marriott, Starwood, whatever, all these brands have the ability to actually make that difference. You have to be able to hire bright sparks into this industry. It has to be alluring, and how do you make it alluring? It has to be fun. It has to pay well. It has to, if you're smart, it has to pay well. I remember at one stage IAG, or I don't know, some brand used to have a trainee to, or like executive to GM in 5 years, just for extremely bright sparks. I may be getting the brand wrong, but that is interesting to a lot of people. Imagine starting your career 22 and saying, hey, you know what, by 28 you'll be a GM of a small hotel. That's interesting to smart young kids. So, yeah, so I think it's a complex problem, but that's my 2 bits of it.
I think it's a great answer. The only thing I'll add, and there's a lot of relevant points that have come here. I just have one request, and I think that's for the leadership that's sitting in this room. And there's some very seasoned general managers and other industry participants. Guys, we need to start challenging the normal self. We are not challenging the status quo, and that's a fact. Tell me how many SOPs you do every day. Your staff uses every day, and they've been using for the last 10 years. Nobody has ever challenged the paperwork in the process. They've never challenged the number of layers, unnecessary layers. And let me tell you, the new generation that's coming in has a very different mindset. We need to intrigue that mindset. I don't think there is a challenge in attracting the talent in the industry if we give them the right kind of enthusiasm and the motivation to come in. My very short response to whatever's been said here, I totally agree. I think over and above, we guys need to start challenging the norm. We are used to archaic ways of working, and that needs to change. If it doesn't change, then we are not attracting talent.
I just have a follow-up to that. So I did a front office internship at Four Seasons Singapore many years ago, and it was front office. And I know the biggest issue the front office manager had with me was, Nirupa, you're asking way too many questions. Because I was like, why is this like this? Why is this process like that? Why can't it be like this? He said, just do as you're told and stop asking me all these questions. The biggest issue was like, hey, you don't have enough makeup on your face, your hair is not in a bun, and you are asking too many questions. So I was like, difficult.
There you go. So here's something that is food for thought for all of you. I think some excellent answers came from the leaders here. But something which, again, I think from what Zubin was saying, since we have a room full of very senior leaders, people who are influencers, therefore I'd like you to carry back 2 things with you today, if you can, as leaders and as general managers and influencers, who are going to influence the next generation of hoteliers who are going to come in. 1, change the internship experience in your hotel, right? Every company in the private sector outside of hotels values the interns. They treat them as future talent who's going to join that company, right? So do that. Please make sure that your interns, when they leave, they are sworn to come back and work for you in that hotel. That's the general manager's role. It won't happen unless the leaders are aligned. That's one. And the second thing, just basic, there's a lot of complex stuff that we need to do. We work with the millennials today. The workplace across every business has changed dramatically. The way offices are being built today are very, very different from what they used to be. So the workplace for a lot of people is very, very exciting. We need to do that to our workplace in hotels as well. Please get your back of the house areas, your staff areas to look as smart as they can. Why can't your cafeterias be like a Starbucks? Why can't we have all the entertainment, recreation facilities? Why can't we do a small co-working center where people can use desks when they're free, when they have a moment? If you can do these 2 things at the start, make sure your back of the house areas are really, really smart for today's millennials. There's exciting stuff that happens when they can get off work for even maybe half an hour, 45 minutes, whenever it's a leave period. And internships, please handle them. Handle them really, really personally. I'm going to come back. Let's talk quickly before we end on ancillary revenue. There's a lot which was said during COVID and even before. It's one of my favorite subjects. The hotels seem to be working on the legacy income generation which comes from rooms, F&B largely, and some what we call the minor operating departments. Is there a story on ancillary revenue? airlines made a fabulous case of it. Today, their largest revenues come from ancillary revenues. Is there a case for it? Right? Should we be considering? Are we just talking about it? Is it for real? Can it happen? What's your view? And since you have exposure to the airline industry, JV, I'm going to start with you.
It's a massive opportunity. And you're right, the ancillary revenues are huge in the airline business. They can be anything from 10 to 12 to 14% across, but they can go in some cases up to in excess of 50%. Ancillary revenues comes from 2 or 3 ways. It's a whole process of bundled products getting unbundled. So pizza gets unbundled to a pizza with this topping, that topping, etc. Similarly for coffee. Coffee is a base coffee, then you start to charge. So you basically unbundle. In hospitality, everything is bundled. There's a case of point. You walk in and then everything is on the house. From air conditioning, maybe something around some particular views of some rooms or something. The second thing, I go back to what I was saying earlier. We have to know what our core is. Because that's where ancillary comes in. Where you get so good at your core, where you bring in customers because they come to the core. Let's say, break my sleep or the room's there. And the ancillaries come from non-core. Which means by definition, the customer is attracted to you because you get so good at your core. Rather than trying to do 20 things, you cannot become good at 20 things. It's like the good old days when you had a menu which said Chinese, Indian, South Indian, Spanish, and everything. It was a great restaurant, multi-cuisine restaurant. Today we've gone down to something like a Michelin star, probably has 6 items or 10 items on the menu. We have huge assets, but we need a business lens to it. That's where it's going to come. We went through this exercise with our JV through COVID. We launched, COVID happened and in 20 days we launched a whole program internally called IGS 3+. And one of the mandates for that was to get into this kind of thing, look at opportunities. About 40 of them were identified, some got implemented, some got tested. But they never got tested with the rigor to drive massive volume revenue. We were talking about food takeaway business. That's something that we discussed as well. But then whenever you're looking at something, you have to take a big, long-term, committed shot at it. Which means if you're getting into the food delivery business, you're not competing with, Accor versus another brand or so on and so forth. You're competing with those, 25,000 dark kitchens that are operating outside, and some of them are getting serious funding. So we have to get real about these things. It needs solid commitment, it needs a business lens, and the only recommendation I would have that if this is an area which the hotel should look at, the industry should look at, we should create a completely separate division, bring in, people from business backgrounds, identify this, put a case out there, commit funding, and put a whole sort of a business out there together. Massive opportunity, and it could do huge, it could just change this industry dramatically.
Interesting. We're going to run out of time. I'm going to ask one question to everybody to end this. You mentioned a point again, something that I've been talking about looking at this industry outside in. We are very inward looking, right? This is the only industry I know which hires only from within the industry. Every single person is hired from within the industry, right? And that's the reason why businesses of executive search that we run find it difficult, because there's nobody I know that you don't know, right? So who am I going to get you that you don't already know, right? What I will be good at is bringing you people that you don't know, but you have to be ready to hire, right? So here's my question. Every industry, if you look at, hires leaders from cross industries who have the skill, the knowledge, and the talent, etc. Simple question. Would you be willing to hire a general manager who is not from the hospitality industry? Yeah? Yes, no, and what your reason could be. We start.
Yes. No, I'm not going to. The answer to that question is yes. In fact, we are very open to that. In fact, we are already considering a lot of positions. I think it's not, of course, it is a unique skill, hospitality is, and we have to appreciate that. But also, there is a great element of leadership. There is a great element of logistics, operational management involved. And then there is this specific hospitality skilling part involved. So I think absolutely yes. And even not only GMs, I think across positions, I can tell you in our office, we have some people from the investment banking industry who are doing some really fantastic things. You know, and yes. Yes.
I want to explain my answer. So honestly, no. I think a lot of money goes into a hotel and I'm not willing to take the risk to hire somebody who doesn't understand the product. And I think of all asset classes, we work in residential, office, retail and hotels and even hospitals. And honestly, hospitality or hotels is the most complicated form of real estate from an operational perspective. And we manage all of them, we run all of them, so I know. So as a general manager, no, I would not want to take the risk on a very intensive asset. But yes, if it's a head of sales, I would mind hiring somebody from the car sales business, expensive luxury cars, maybe yes, maybe insurance. If it's revenue management, I think nobody does it better than the airline industry. So yes, so I think maybe like a head of a department, like sales or executive housekeeping. I mean, those are technical roles. Obviously, like chef, F&B and things like that. Those are technical roles. I wouldn't want to change that. But for some roles like sales, revenue management, where I think there are other industries we can actually learn from, IT, of course, yes. But general manager, no. I mean, I'd want them to understand the product first.
Mandeep, I think your question is rhetorical. As an owner, I'll say that. Which operator here is going to get a GM here to me for an interview who's not from the hospitality industry? No, too much of a risk.
I love this question. In my mind, diversity is very powerful. It's got nothing to do with existing talent in hospitality, but you need diverse views in the room. And for us at Interglobe, we do this all the time. We bring in people from other industries and we plug them in high operating zones, even say at a strategic level like corporate. Even I'm from that school of thought, you know, airlines, ran GSA companies, ran 9 years of tech companies, got into hospitality, and right now I'm setting up and I'm going to run a logistics business with UPS. And it's a joint venture we just announced with 30. So we do this all the time, we love it, it works for us, but that doesn't mean we move completely away from the industry. So even when we revamped Interglobe Hotels, we got people from the housing business, from the hospital business, and so on, you know, and from ILFS, from the consulting side. Today in the logistics side, we do have out of you know, the key people, there are a couple from logistics. We got people from Walmart, we got people from the chocolate business, and things like that. I think it's key to look for the right aptitude, leadership to your point. Bring in the mid-layer is where the industry has to be solid. And that's what you bolt down with a good diverse population, and you will get very, very surprising results. You'll be challenged every day, and that healthy tension is very, very good for business, and it also allows people to grow.
I have a little different perspective. As an owner, I would say yes to a general manager from outside the industry. I'll tell you why. But never the process leaders, never the HODs who are actually doing the processes. You ask me why. Today, I think our entire uniform system of accounting in hotels is too archaic. Rooms, food and beverage, MOD. I think today people, when they come to hotels, they're no longer buying things, they're buying experiences. And to your previous question, I think there is a huge opportunity to sell these experiences. Today in our Radisson Pondicherry Hotel, one of our hotels, we sell a sunset with wine. It's no longer rooms and it's no longer only food and beverage. We sell full moon parties. So there is a huge opportunity of selling experiences, and that cannot come with a seasoned general manager who's been only selling rooms, food and beverage and MOD. It has to be somebody from outside the industry who's thinking beyond, outside the box, who's thinking about selling experiences, setting up experiences for the guests. And he's going to challenge those process leaders on a daily basis, asking them to think out of the box, and that's what's going to make the hotel successful.
Are you saying that GMs here cannot be leaders in other industries?
Absolutely my point. They should be leaders in other industries. They should not be leaders only in this industry. Hotel general managers have that diverse experience which you rarely get in any other industry. So yes, all of you who run hotels have the ability to run other industries. And I think you are very sought after if you do wish to change your industry.
I want to add that every time I meet general managers, at our IBISes, they're young general managers, 35, 30. We've got HR heads becoming general managers. All of you have got so much experience. But Mandy is so right. I can tell you, I've worked cross industry. What general managers, the experience that they get, and what they actually do under the line of fire 24/7, dealing with hundreds of emotions in the building. I can tell you it's massive knowledge and asset. You just have to understand how to unlock it. Trust me, it is very powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. Please. So we're going to end the discussion. Nirupti, you want to say something?
Yeah. No, I want to know, maybe since you do a lot of recruitment, how many general managers that are hired are from outside the industry?
Very, very few. And that is the reason I'm asking this question. Because the industry, in my opinion, needs diverse leaders. We are all too focused on area, park, RevPAR, F&B, food costs. We need somebody to come and tell us, how to smell the coffee differently. We honestly do, and it is no reflection to anybody sitting in this room. I've been a general manager. I rose through the same way as all of you, right? But the need of the hour is to bring diverse talent, people who will look at our industry differently than what we are doing, who will try and bring a different perspective. It's not happening, but my prediction is it will increasingly happen as we go forward. Ladies and gentlemen, on that note, it's been a great session chatting to all of you. Some fabulous thoughts that came out. When I started, I had no clue where we were heading because everything was already done and dusted. But I enjoyed the session. Thank you all for being patient listeners. And now it's your turn. In case you still have any questions and you still want to delay the booze and the dinner, please feel free to ask them.
Don't get disheartened. Please ask. There is a gentleman. Can somebody reach to him? Please, sir, identify yourself.
evening. This is Ajay Sabrige from Global Hotels, AAT. I think the answer to most of the questions we spoke about is competency versus the skill set. Competency is what defines who you are, regardless of the industry. I still lose people for a different industry, from whether it is EdTech, FinTech, whether it is from sales, distribution, revenue management. We're losing those people. I think if we look at from industry perspective about competencies, we're in the game. Then from the skill set, the same coffee can be sold by the same guy who sells the BMW. If we look at that perspective, I think we're ahead of our game. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, let's find out. This is a good opportunity before anyone decides to ask any more questions. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. It's been very, very enriching. Thank you so much.
Gaurav, thank you. All the partners, thank you. Lovely audience, thank you. That you, prolific speaker. I think that was a great marathon evening today, but truly, truly full of substance. And I think at this point of time, I've never seen the hall absolutely, devouring each session as much as I have. I think I want to thank you once again and for believing in us, supporting in us, and standing with us and helping us to, bring this forum to you. Very soon, we obviously go to multiple cities. Could I have the Trinity of Success as well, in case you guys have us right behind? It's been a great journey for us. I don't like the chairs. They're blocking all the lovely people there. But nonetheless, we believe that how can we bring industry together? And that's what we do tomorrow at Grand Hyatt in Mumbai. And this is called Trinity of Success. We believe that all stakeholders have to come as one cohesive force to deliver the best. And it's important, the lovely donors, the designers, the consultants to come together. We are talking about Trinity of Success tomorrow evening in a closed group discussion, and we're talking sustainable luxury. So we at ITB Media, Hotelier India, and all the wonderful partners want to immensely thank you for giving your time, staying with us, and listening to us intently. And you learned, we learned, and together we can make this industry shine and super shine. Thank you. And the bar is open. We don't stop. Thank you very much.